Been a while. Ready, Troy? Ronnie? Ronnie. Haven't seen you in a while. Guess who's back, bitches?
Do you crave exciting sports takes and news? Fed up with the same old boring voices you hear on the radio? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you just might be a Tbloomaholic. Lucky for you, it's time for another episode of the Tbloom Talk Show, the #1 sports podcast in the world. Settle in, my Tbloomanites, because another episode starts right now. Live from Tbloom headquarters, here's your host, Tbloom.
Calm down, everyone. Relax. Will you give me a tissue, William? John, we all set there? Steven, good? Welcome back, nation, to another episode of the Tbloom Talk Show. Today it is Tuesday. That means it's Tbloom Tuesday, and it is time for our middle of the week weekly episodic podcast coming to you right now by yours truly. And we're going to just dig into what's going on in the sports world nowadays. After the end of football season, that always signals kind of the downfall for a lot of sports fans in general. I mean, the NBA isn't what it used to be, at least not for me. And there's really not much excitement going on. But that's why we're here every middle of the week on Tuesday. You can call it, I call it the middle of the week practically, on Tuesday to get you excited about something. So sit tight right there. Pull up your popcorn, your chair, get your notes ready as we're going to go into a journey on this week's episode of the Tbloom Tuesday Talk Show. Let's go. That's fresh ground coffee. Man, I am already on my first cup of coffee, and I haven't had coffee in about 3 weeks. So I'm feeling it right now. I might be a little regular old chatterbox more than I usually am. So we're going to try and get this done as concise and to the point as possible for you folks at home watching Tbloom Talk Show. Just want to say thanks again, and let's get it started. This past weekend was the Henry Cejudo versus Yadong fight night in Seattle, Washington at Climate Pledge Arena, and your boy was in attendance. That's right. Wasn't in attendance like I wanted to be. Dana White never quite sent out the press passes, which we were kind of hoping for. Thought we would easily be in there. But nonetheless, we made the journey inside of, I guess you can call it the Octagon. This kind of sporting event, for those of you who have never been to a mixed martial arts sporting event of any level, this was my first one. Wow. Just wow. I mean, I don't know if it was because UFC hasn't been back to Seattle in about 13 years, but this environment, you could just feel the tensions in the air, and not the tensions of between two people, but just the absolute excitement that everyone had to be there. I mean, man, the testosterone was running wild. Crazy atmosphere to be in. I mean, the card was absolutely second to none. And I'm not talking about the big names being on the card or the household names being presented on the card, because it wasn't that, and it was never going to be that, and that's not what we were expecting. I mean, the biggest star you could say that was on the card was Henry Cejudo, who's not necessarily a household name per se. He's no McGregor. He's no John Jones. He's not a Sean O'Malley, but he's the most famous guy on the card. But the card was so good, guys. The prelims, every single one of them ended in either a submission or a knockout. The prelims, the beginning of the fights that aren't even supposed to steal the show, absolutely stole the show, and the arena was absolutely rocking. And again, I can't really compare it to anything, because again, this was my first time at any MMA event, but it sure sounded like the place was rocking. And even Dana White had very good words to say about the crowd, and all the fighters had were very happy and pleased with the crowd's reaction and their involvement in this one. And it even started early with that Bukauskas KO against Sirkiera. I mean, it was one of those things where it started and it never stopped until the very end. And we'll get into the very end pretty soon here, as it had quite a I guess you can say, questionable finish. So we'll get that in just a second. I just wanted to give you guys another glimpse of what exactly you're dealing with the environment we were in. So you know how you usually go to any sporting event, any event, so to speak, where there's an arena. And typically between time periods, whether it's halftime, between quarters, hockey, I believe they call them periods, everyone gets up out of their seat and they do two things. They do three things. They're either getting beer or an alcoholic adult beverage, food, or they got to go to the bathroom. Typically, for the bathroom part of it, the women's bathroom is the one that's backed up, miles long. That wasn't the case here. I have never waited so long to take a piss in my life than I did this last Saturday night. The men's bathroom, and I'm talking all over the stadium. There wasn't one bathroom that in between fights wasn't just filled miles long of dudes just waiting to take a piss. And that just kind of describes the demographic that was there, right? I mean, UFC, MMA, that's not generally bringing in all the ladies per se. It's bringing in a lot of dudes and a lot of dudes who love to drink. And that could be really good for business. It could also be a little bit bad for the arena guests. I've seen at least 3-4 fights break out. Personally. Just being at my seat, just watching in the crowd, fights just break out left and right, leaving the stadium, guys with their shirts off, ready to fucking throw down. Maybe that's because of how the card ended with Cejudo eye poke, or maybe that's just the tensions flaring in the air, the testosterone just running wild. It was an absolute insane spectacle. I highly, highly suggest anybody who has not been to a UFC event to go to a UFC event. I'm not saying it's going to be like that. I'm not saying you're going to get the card that we were blessed with. Maybe not the card, but the fight quality that we were blessed with. But I highly, highly suggest going to one. It was an absolute... It's just a fun time. And this isn't... I'm not saying that everyone had high tensions. I mean, the group that we were in, everyone was having a good time. We were all talking UFC. Everyone felt happy, it seemed, to be there with a bunch of other UFC fans and to go out and watch some fights and support guys that they, have only seen on TV. So with that being said, that's my rant and pretty much my overall overview of how exactly the Song Yadong versus Henry Cejudo fight night went down over at Climate Pledge Arena. Dana White, he should be back sooner than later. I can't wait. I'll be going back. And yes, there you go. But as I said, this card didn't necessarily end in the fairy tale storybook ending, as it was Song Yadong versus Henry Cejudo in a very interesting bantamweight matchup that ended in controversy. So for those of you who don't know, in the third round, with about a minute left, I would say, I could be give or taking a few seconds here or there, about a minute left, Henry Cejudo gets poked in the eye by Song Yadong. It was very clear. I mean, this wasn't like maybe he got poked. It was very evident that he got poked, and got poked pretty hard in the eyeball. Now, to what extent did that affect Henry Cejudo's eyesight? Well, I mean, there's kind of a lot of mixed opinions on that. So as I said, he got poked in roughly the end of the third round, about a minute 30 left. He takes the full 5 minutes of injury time, as he should. Keep in mind, Henry Cejudo also in this same round got kicked in the dick. I mean, bro code, no dick shots. That's pretty universal. As it should be universal. Bro code, no dick shots. Song Yadong breaks bro code, kicks him in the dick, then he pokes him in the eye. So, good for you, Henry. Take all 5 minutes, no problem. Do what you got to do. He finishes the third round. And if anybody who's seen that fight going down, I mean, Henry Cejudo, when he finished that round after the high poke, did not look like he was going to have any chance of beating Song Yadong. I mean, Song Yadong started to pick him apart. It seemed like Henry was really being obstructed by his lack of being able to see Song Yadong. So, they go to the corner, for the minute break from the third period going into the fourth period. And Henry's team, talking to him normal, Henry tells him, I can't fucking see out of my eye. Henry's team seems to shrug it off, not really say much about it, and pulls the stool out of the octagon, brings it out as if everything is fine, as if Henry's ready to go round 4, and we look like we have a round 4 going in, and Henry suddenly looks confused. I mean, keep in mind, stools pulled, everybody thinks we got a round 4, crowds erupting, giving him praise, let's go round 4, because it's been a pretty decent fight for the most part. I mean, the last fight of the night, Seattle fans are pumped up, they're ready to go, and then all of a sudden the doctor steps back into the cage, and waves it off. This crowd erupted with boos, fuck yous, continues, you're a pussy, fucking all of the above was just being thrown at Henry Cejudo. The crowd could not believe that he was not finishing this fight. Now, I know that's kind of the thing you should do. You always want the fighter to continue and to be a fighter, quote unquote, and fight through and finish the fight for the fans. But it's really easy as a drunk, probably stuffed full of nacho cheese, pretzels. Climate Pledge, they have like little intricate things like salmon. I mean, you can really eat some fine dining. Just pumped full with alcohol, food, probably a little, if you know what I mean. It's really easy as you're sitting there in your King's Crown chair to say he needs to fight on, he pussed out. And I'm not saying fighters don't do that. I just personally don't believe this was the case. If you go and look at the eye poke, I mean, it looks pretty fucking damaging. And if you go on to see the rest of the third round where Henry had to fight, and 5 minutes, they took 5 minutes. So it's not like he was gassed at all. It's not like either fighter was gassed. But the end of that third round, after Henry took those 5 minutes, he did not look like the same fighter that he was prior to being eye poked. So that leads me to believe, yeah, he probably couldn't see. He probably, can't fucking see the guy. He just got poked in the eye. So because 3 rounds had occurred, the decision goes to who won those 3 rounds. Scorers got to judge it for a 3-round fight. Scorers gave 2 to Song Yadong. One of them gave all 3 to Song Yadong. And he would walk out with a with a decision. But I think Henry Cejudo knew that. I don't think Henry Cejudo said, yeah, let's take it to the cards. I probably got him 2-1. I don't think that he had it 2-1. I don't think that he thought he had it 2-1. I think this was a man who legitimately just couldn't see, didn't want to put himself out there in front of harm's way, get knocked out, and then all of a sudden he's probably no chance he's ever going to make a run at that bantamweight belt again. Keep in mind, Henry Cejudo, he's coming off of 2 losses, both of them to some high talent, some high praise, last 2 champions. But he needs to make a run, and he needs to make a run now. He doesn't have time for this. So to put yourself in front of harm's way against Song Yadong, one of the best strikers in the bantamweight division, almost guaranteeing you're going to lose those next 2 rounds, it just doesn't make sense. And if you look at it, I mean, I'll show the video. That's a pretty bad eye poke. And also I'll show you some pictures after the fight that Henry posted of his eye. I mean, I think you could say what you want about, fighters, you need to work through that no matter what, fucking go until you die. You can say all these things and stuff from your chair with your popcorn and your beer and your gut poking out and you're half dazed, half drunk, don't even know really what's going on. You just really want to see another fight. You could say all these things from that position, but I think legitimately Henry Cejudo has legitimate reason for not finishing that fight. As much as I hate to say it, because trust me, I wanted that fight to continue too. But, I mean, guys, there's a reason why eye pokes are outlawed. It's because it fucks with you. There's a big reason why they're outlawed. And Song Yadong's lucky that he didn't get a point drawn, and that would have went to a draw, which would have ruined his chances at making a run for that belt. Which brings me to the question, should they run this back? Henry Cejudo versus Song Yadong. Dana White says no. But Henry Cejudo and Song Yadong are both on the same page and say, yeah, let's do it. Does it make sense to do that fight? I guess because it's ended in such controversy and there's really not a clear-cut winner, so to speak, because it ended early. You never know. But do we want to see it again? I personally don't. I don't want to see it again. Would it be fair? Yeah. I wouldn't be mad if it was booked, but Dana White's got a point. I don't really want to see that fight again. I think Song Yadong is the clear-cut better fighter at this point. Henry wasn't able to get him to the ground early. That was going to be a big advantage of his that he was supposed to have coming in this fight. So, no, personally, I don't want to see this fight again. But I won't be mad if they do display the fight again. So that's my gripe there. But shout out all the way to that whole event leading up, because there was multiple fights, pullouts, rearrangements that Dana White worked his ass off to make. So shout out Dana White, shout out to UFC, shout out to Climate Pledge for making that event such a fantastic and fun event and making me want to come back, and I'm sure a ton of other people to come back. Okay. We got some more UFC news coming on, one that just broke earlier this morning. Dan Hooker is officially withdrawn and is out with a hand injury against Justin Gaethje at UFC 313. Now, it's no surprise this is officially Dan Hooker's third pullout in the last 2 years that he's had, and this is the second hand injury that has kept him out of a fight. What the fuck, Dan? I mean, do you got to wrap up your hands a little bit more, maybe put a little bit more padding? How do you get in hand injuries not even 4 weeks before fights, 2 weeks before fights? What are you doing in training that's causing you to hurt your hand so much that you can't fight somebody in a week and a half? What the fuck? Is this normal? UFC fighters, if any of you can see this, is this normal behavior to be doing training or having workouts that can potentially damage your hand so bad that you can't make a fight in a week and a half? And if it is so, then maybe I'm stupid, maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like bullshit, Dan. Come on. Really wanted to see this one. So, inevitably, this puts the UFC 313 card in jeopardy. I mean, this is the co-main event, and if it's not the co-main event, then it should have been a co-main event, because this is a headline. This fight, fireworks. As of right now, we got Alex Pereira versus Ankalaev for the light heavyweight championship. That's going to be a banger. Justin Gaethje versus NA. We'll get into that. Who could be that guy to step up and make the play against Justin Gaethje? I got a few in mind. Then you got Jalen Turner versus Ignacio Bahamontes. Amanda Lemos versus Yasmin Lucindo. And King Green versus Mauricio Ruffy. Not a star-studded card. I'm willing to bet, if you're not a person that watches the UFC, or even just calls himself a casual UFC fan. Wow, that was calls himself a casual UFC fan. You're probably not going to recognize more than two names on there. You got Alex Pereira, Justin Gaethje, Jalen Turner, if you've been around, Bobby Green, maybe. But this card lacks star power. This is kind of what the UFC's problem is nowadays. They just lack that really star power. They're looking for superstars. And I get it. It's going to take time. It's going to take cards like this where people don't know people, but they put them in the spotlight. They can watch them on pay-per-view, and they can grow an audience like that. I get it's going to take time. But, man, this is not looking like a card that I'm willing to pay money for right now, depending on who Justin Gaethje's going against, which, by the way, tell me I'm wrong, but doesn't this have Max Holloway written all over it? This has got Max Holloway written all over this. I mean, the guy's 4 months out of his last fight, which ended in round 2 against Ilia Topuria, his first ever time being knocked out. But it only went 2 rounds, and Max Holloway's a guy who usually going 5, at least 4 rounds. Hard. So I'm sure his cardio's there. I'm sure he's always staying in shape. I mean, he's picked up multiple short notice UFC fights over his career. That's kind of how he's made a name for himself. Like I said, 4 months removed. I'm sure he's still training. I haven't heard anything about him wanting to take a break or to step away and take some time for his family, even though he deserves it. I mean, this guy's is one of those guys on the roster with one of the most fights in the UFC, yet he's only 31. So he deserves time because he's put in the time. Man, that's good. And not to mention, that would be an immediate fireworks show. I mean, I'm going to say it. You put Max Holloway in there to go against Justin Gaethje, even if it is short notice, this automatically becomes a more anticipated fight than Dan Hooker and Justin Gaethje. Why? Did you see what happened last time they fought each other for the BMF? Max Holloway could step up and say, hey, I'm willing to put my BMF belt on the line against you again, Justin. Let's run it back. You don't think Justin Gaethje wants that fight? You don't think Justin Gaethje, the man who was probably next in line for that lightweight championship before he agreed to terms with Max Holloway the first time to take him on for the BMF belt, puts it all on the line, last 10 seconds, and then just gets hit with the shot, and he gets knocked out? You don't think that eats at him and he wants to avenge that loss? I don't know, man. I look at him as a competitor and a guy who's fucking willing to throw down with anybody, and I'm just thinking that Justin really wants that one back. This is the way you got to go, Dana. Whatever you can do, pull Max Holloway into that fucking spot, and you're right back to a fucking card. You're right back into good standing with the rest of the UFC casuals out there. Couple other people came out and said they want a shot at him. Rafael Fiziev. Last time, his last loss was to Justin Gaethje. A welcome to the UFC moment for him. That would be an interesting fight to bring in. I'm not going to lie. If I can't do Max, bring in Rafael Fiziev. Bring him in. That guy's been hungry. I don't even think he's fought since that loss. Let me look it up. Ronnie, has he fought since that loss? You don't know? Troy? No? Let's look at it. Going to tap. Oh, that's right. He lost the decision in a majority decision against Justin Gaethje. Then he had that leg injury. I believe it was a broken leg. It was a bad one, too, against Gamrot. Yeah, no, Rafael Fiziev would be a perfect number 2. If you can't do Max, do Rafael. And I guarantee you that's going to be a banger. That guy is a dog and is willing to take a beating, as we've seen the first time he went against Justin Gaethje. Question is Justin Gaethje going to be super excited to go against him? Because if he beats him, he doesn't really move up very much. But if he loses to him, then he's moving down. And time's ticking for Justin Gaethje. So, going to be interesting there. Another guy who wanted to come out and said that he wants him is Renato Marchino. I forget how to say his name. Moicanico. He wants to fight him. Not too excited about that one. I mean, I know he just stepped up against Islam. Didn't really show much. He showed some good striking against Islam, but it's Islam. It would be an interesting fight. It wouldn't be a star-powered. I wouldn't like to see it over Rafael or Max Holloway, but it would be something, I guess, that would at least give the fans a show at the end of the day. And then also, Gamrot says he wants a shot at him. Dude, Gamrot, nobody wants to see you try and take down Justin Gaethje and hold him up against a cage for fucking 25 minutes, and then we barely see any fighting at all. That is the last decision I think Dana White should come up with, is to put Gamrot in this one. No. Please do not do it. I think that would be a snooze fest. I honestly think Gamrot would probably win just by trying to ride him out and making it as boring as possible, like most of his fights. No hate on you, Gamrot. You got to do what you got to do to win. But your style that creates wins isn't necessarily the most exciting. Yeah. So, UFC 313 in jeopardy, but we got a lot of options. And don't give up on the card just yet. Sorry about that, folks. My OBS stopped recording because my computer needed more space, which freaks me out because how much fucking space does it need? I mean, come on. What are you, a solar system? Oh, that was bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're going to move on to the NFL now, though. Some topics I want to talk to you about in the offseason. Although the season's done, the offseason rolls on. Let's move on. This past week, Titans head coach Brian Callahan had some things to say about what he sees Travis Hunter doing in the NFL. Take a listen.
Able to play on both sides of the ball.
Oh, very realistic.
A good deal, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, it's very realistic. I think he's a unique player, that there's not a whole lot of other players you could compare what he's done. There's not many guys that have played that many snaps on both sides of the ball. And you watch his tape and you see his ability to play both at a very high level. So, yeah, I think anybody that you talk to about him is going to say the same thing, that he's got the ability to play both. And that I think you're going to find out where he fits if you were to get him. But he's got a really unique ability to do a lot of different things.
Interesting stuff by the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, who have the very first pick in the NFL draft, who I'm going to say it's kind of likely that they take Travis Hunter. I don't know if they necessarily give up on Will Levis just yet. They should, but the guy's got so many mayonnaise endorsements, it'd be kind of hard to have your backup QB just still be on the TV. Just kind of a weird thing. But back to what he was saying about Travis Hunter, I'm saying this is a guy who could potentially do both those things. Now, me personally, I'm not a very big college football guy. I dabble because I love football. I do dabble. But I'm not a huge college football guy. And from my lens, from my perspective as a casual, I kind of always saw Travis Hunter as more of a receiver than a cornerback. Now, apparently, from what I've heard, more people are leaning towards him being a cornerback than a receiver, saying that receiver's more of his secondary position. Not to mention he won the 2026 Defensive Conference Player of the Year as a cornerback. That's a pretty unheard of thing to do as a cornerback, right? Steve? Yeah, okay. So, to understand that he's more of a corner than a receiver, that's what kind of led me to believe he'd only play one position, saying he should stick to the receiver game. But if he's capable of being a better corner than receiver, I don't know. I mean, maybe he can. Maybe he can do it. Now, to do it the whole game, I don't know if that's possible. But to come in and be a plug player on offense, maybe a little gadget player, maybe a player that comes in every other drive just to keep the defense on edge, maybe. But I never really thought that he had a chance of going back and forth. I didn't think any NFL execs or any NFL insiders or coaches or whatever you want to call them gave him any chance of playing both ways either. I thought that's way out the fucking window. Once he signs up for the draft, gone. Apparently not. Apparently, we might be seeing Travis Hunter play both sides of the ball next year. Hopefully not for, the Titans I was going to say hopefully not for the Titans, but it could be a lot worse than getting drafted the Titans. I really fear that he's going to get drafted by the Browns, guys. And we know what happens to Browns guys that get drafted and become Browns. That stain never leaves them. You can clean it. You can spray wash it. You can, put some bleach on it, on, your all whites. But at the end of the day, there's still going to be that little stain there that you can always see of that Browns organization kind of following you out for your whole career. It's really fucked up what they do to talent, seriously. So I kind of hope Travis doesn't have to go through that. So maybe he's going to be a Titan next year. Just a little interesting sight into kind of what some NFL execs are thinking may be an option for one of the potential first overall picks of the 2026 NFL draft. All right. Another good news. I guess you could say good news if you're a Chiefs fan, or maybe bad news if you're a Chiefs fan, depending on how you lean. Travis Kelce is supposed to be coming back next year. Chiefs GM Brett Veach says he was fired up after his last talk with him and expects him to be back for the 2026 NFL season. Now, I don't know about you guys, but man, did his age show in that Super Bowl. And multiple bad things were shown against the Chiefs in that Super Bowl. Stuff that we weren't even used to seeing. We didn't even know was possible. That O-line looked bad. Patrick Mahomes making questionable decisions. But the effort for Travis Kelce just didn't seem there. Now, was that because they're getting blown out? Could be, but you got to think you're in the Super Bowl. You better fucking put your balls to the walls until that clock hits 0. Hence a 24-3 comeback. Patriots versus Falcons. But yeah, the effort just didn't seem there. I mean, maybe it's because he's too old. He just doesn't have it in him that much. But I mean, how much more can he give to this game as a tight end at his age? One of the more physical positions. Can't really block. So you know when he's out there, he's not necessarily going to be a block, but he's going to be a decoy. I don't know if this is good or bad. I guess we'll have to see, but I can tell you this. I don't want a pissed off Travis Kelce, Mahomes tandem ready to come back and prove it against the world that they are still those people. That doesn't seem like a good recipe for the rest of the league. But who knows? Maybe that could just be his ego still holding on and believing that he's still, top tier. And don't get me wrong, he's still, a legitimate threat out there. He didn't have his best year this year, but, I mean, the Chiefs' offense is completely different from what it was, say, even 3 years ago, even the year after they got rid of Tyreek Hill. They really got to just taking their first downs, taking small chunk plays, Brady-esque Patriots, if you will. So it's just interesting. I didn't think he'd come back. I thought he'd ride off, I guess into the sunset, even though he didn't win. It's still a great career. To end your career on going 2 for 3 in a Super Bowl, in Super Bowls all 3 years. I mean, that's pretty cool. So just an interesting thing. I didn't think he'd come back, and I'm kind of mixed on emotions and how to feel about it. As a Steeler fan, I can't afford another Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl. I was very happy about what happened in the outcome. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about it? Is this a good thing or a bad thing for the rest of the league? My energy saver just came on. That means my laptop's about to die. That means I need to plug it in, but I don't know where my charger is. We're going to keep rolling. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about that just came out, that the NFL has been proposed to, or someone has proposed to the NFL, a specific team, that the tush push should be banned. I'm just going to break the news. It was the Packers. I'm sure you guys have heard it. The Packers want the damn tush push banned. Now let's talk about this. I'm going to break it down real simple, and I've talked about this before. Should the tush push be banned? Well, why? Is it unfair? Does it give the offense a advantage, a crazy advantage that is duplicable? Is that a word? Duplicatable? Can you duplicate this from team to team to team and have the same success? And when you answer that question, you have to say no. No one's been able to do it as well as Philly. It ain't like it's something that's going around in the league and it's just ruining every single game. It just so happens that one team is fucking incredible at doing it, and it's worked for them, and they happen to have won a Super Bowl. Not just off this. The tush push was a very small part of why they won the Super Bowl. They're just, that could have an offense, defense, and you guys all know the story. But this just happens to be a part of their game plan that is very useful in, short yardage, short time on the clock situations. So, therefore, it's not, no one's duplicating it as well. It's stoppable. And because of that, you can't just ban it because a team's really good. It's like saying back in the day when the Patriots had Randy Moss and Tom Brady their first year, when they went undefeated and lost the Super Bowl to the Giants. It's like saying, should we ban deep balls because they're really good at doing them? Should we ban having 3 Pro Bowlers on the same team with a Hall of Fame QB? It's too picky. It's too picky right now. No one's able to duplicate it. As much, I'm not saying I love the play at all. I hate it. But damn, they're good at it. And it's up to the rest of the league to not only focus on every time that it works. How about you take the time and focus on when it didn't work? That's the plays. Those are the films that you need to be studying. When did it all go wrong for the Eagles? And how did it happen? What did the defense do? That's where you should be spending your time, Green Bay, instead of proposing to the league for them to outlaw and ban it. That's going to wrap up this show. I got short time. My computer's about to die here in a second. But you know what won't? You, nation, and the Tbloom Talk Show. We'll see you later next week with a full view of the UFC Fight Night, my predictions, and everything you need to know. Thank you for joining me for this Tbloom Tuesday. We'll see you in a few. Love ya, nation.